Sunday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern here on BeyondRingside.com. Join us for the Midnight Black Mass. Myself, the Reverend Dan Wilson, brings you the dark gospel of professional wrestling, uncensored, unedited, uncut, and not for the faint of heart. You can find out more about us at youtube.com/pottyhumor or subscribe at Potty Humor on iTunes and Stitcher today.
Forget all you know about podcasts. We welcome you to an experience uniquely different. Please join us for our coverage of all entertainment on the fringe of society. The candles are lit, the lights are down low. It is now time to welcome our host as he steps up to the pulpit. The sacrifice has been prepared for the midnight black mass.
Ghastly greetings, groovy ghoulies, and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Midnight Black Mass for 2017. I am your host, the maniacal minister of the occult, the Reverend Dan the Dragon Wilson, the devil you know. Flying solo tonight as far as our regular crew, but I do have, of course, the founder of the Beyond Ringside Radio Network, Fast Eddie Layne, joining me tonight to indulge in this discussion. How you doing, man?
Wonderfully well. You give me a nice, quiet little place, actually loud little place with a bunch of German beer and some brats, and I'm a happy fat man.
Well, the autumnal season is certainly the time for that, as I sit here on the haunted porch of the compound with numerous ghosts flying around me. I got a coffin set up here. I got a real gnarly gargoyle, a couple of jack-o'-lanterns, and a talking tombstone. So it's a good time. I'm in a good mood. Probably not going the full hour tonight, I will warn fans in advance, since it's just me and Eddie. Just got some topics to hit, and then I've got a lot of Halloween preparation to get to. Tomorrow night is the big night. I'll be certain to share my photos of my awesome costume. I'm pretty excited about it this year. Going in the Batman realm again. I've done that a few times, but this is at the request of my daughter. We are all going to be DC characters. So let your imagination run wild with that. But I got a pretty wicked scheme that I've concocted. So I'm excited to share that. Going to indulge in all the trick-or-treating and movie marathons. Celebrated Halloween this past Saturday night in wrestling in Cornelia, Georgia at the Landmark Arena for Fright Night 2017. Was a hell of an event. One of those events I actually, just due to a million contributing factors, the least of which were a horrible trip down there in the fucking pouring down rain, that we saw, at least 3 wrecks, one of them that happened right in front of us, set in several traffic delays. Took about 4 hours to make it 2.5 hours. So it was always fun when that happens. And, that plus just other stresses. I showed up in a real shit mood to Fright Night, and, the enthusiasm of all the crew and the wrestlers, was infectious, and they went out there and just killed it, and everything came off great. It was bravely reviewed. Larry Goodman said it was our best show of the year. I don't know if I'd say that, but maybe top to bottom as far as, everything working and nothing being extraneous. I thought it was pretty damn good, and the people in attendance thought that as well. So check it out, Powerbomb.tv. They have added so much lately that you want to check out. They got AIW on there. They got Nova Pro from Virginia. They just added a bunch of the Smart Mark video archive, including years upon years of IWA Mid-South that's going to be coming out. like with all of that classic stuff from them. So it's well worth your $9.99 investment. But if you use the promo code Anarchy, you can get 20 days free on us from Powerbomb TV to see what you're missing. And you can check Fright Night out. It ought to be up there just within the next couple of days. So, we got a pretty quick turnaround on those events now. Was real happy with it. But that's not the theme of tonight. But before we move on, did you have any comments, questions, etc. regarding Fright Night and what's going on in the wrestling world? Because we're about to abandon that.
I knew some of the lineup. Now, I'm really curious about the four-way tag team ladder match that was supposed to take place between the Hate Junkies team tag, the Approved, and the Lynch Mob.
Yes, well, it took place, and they beat the hell out of each other with some ladders, and they dove off some ladders and dove into the crowd and to the floor and all other sorts of craziness. But one thing that was really awesome about that ladder match is like it really came off as a fight between these 8 guys trying to get the titles, which I feel like so many ladder matches now are just like, okay, let's set up for the next cool thing that we can do using the ladders, and then let's set up for the next cool, innovative thing we can do using ladders. That's all well and good, but when you can really capture people, and the fans were just so white hot the entire time, the entire night, and even in this ladder match, because it was definitely like competition was the name of the game, like getting up there and getting the title and winning the match, not the old standard indie bullshit, So I was real proud of those guys.
Yeah, because, you've got the Hate Junkies involved in a circumstance like this, and they are willing to do anything, not just to win, but to prove a point. And the Lynch Mob has been one of the hottest teams going in the Southeastern U.S. and then some for a little while now. The wild card in this one that I figured would be the Approved, because even Team Tag has that little bit more of a vicious streak than a lot of tag teams do in the Southeastern U.S.
I think, as far as brawlers, the Approved has pretty much shown that they're about on the level of the Hate Junkies, and that's no small potatoes.
No.
They've really had an edge over the last few months. I think in part to being pissed off at me as the matchmaker for whatever reason. They always had a new one, it seemed. But regardless, that chip seemed to refine them, and can't take anything away from them. They didn't. There was no rules broken, no chicanery. They were the better team out of 3 other teams, and walked away the winners.
And if I could impose, because I don't know the results and I didn't see the Goodman write-up, the steel cage match for the Anarchy Championship, Ashworth Miller.
Oh, what a fight! Your 2 hosses. I mean, if you see any history, you could see it all at Powerbomb TV. Their entire feud. Powerbomb TV content starts around March. So that's when we got all of our production in order. So unfortunately, there's some lost footage from October, November, December of 2016 that actually didn't show their first match, which was a tag match called the Sadistic Santa. And it was just basically like each person in the match got a Christmas present for the winning team, which was a match of their choosing. And so Jacob ended up pinning Gunner in that match and earning his shot at Hardcore Hell. Their first singles match was at Hardcore Hell. And Jacob won. He won the title. Actually, I don't think I think they actually had a couple singles matches prior to that, even to set up the match at Hardcore Hell. But Jacob got his first win at Hardcore Hell, and then Gunner beat him back for the title in July at Tanks for the Memories. And so now back here in October, this has been going on almost a year.
Yeah.
And these 2 bring out the best in each other each time. You got 2 big dudes, athletic, scrappy. Both have learned a lot in the course of this rivalry, I think. And the cage match was just brutal. They beat the piss out of each other. Jacob was a bloody mess, and he gave it his all. But, this Gunner Miller's such a beast. And he proved it again. He beat indie darling Tim Donst in Virginia, Nova Pro, the Washington, D.C. area, on Friday night. He hopped on a plane, flew to Atlanta.
Damn.
Went to Cornelia, Georgia that day, defended in a cage against Jacob Ashworth in a brutal, bloody affair, and beat him clean as a whistle. It took 2 jackhammers. Jacob was the only person to ever kick out of the Gunner's jackhammer, but he did it after hitting 3 CTEs into the cage, and it was a sick spot because here Jacob's like trapped in the ropes in between the cage, and Gunner just keeps on just plowing him with the CTE, and Jacob's head is just bouncing off of this cage like a ping pong ball. Jacob threw up 2 middle fingers, and Gunner hit him with one last kill shot, no pun intended, and then hit the jackhammer for the second time to beat him. And so Gunner again walked away the victor. Surprise at the end, Logan Creed made his Anarchy debut and went nose to nose with Gunner in the cage, clearly trying to make it known he wants to be the next contender. So looks like the people were red hot for that. And then after that, the fired Brad Cash, who bought a ticket, dressed up in a Halloween costume and sat in the crowd, attacks Jacob Ashworth and locks him in the cage and proceeds to beat him further. And finally, security and the local Cornelia constabulatory, the fucking Cornelia police officers had to come and take take Brad Cash out of there. So it was a wild night. Friday night is the 18th annual. It's always one of the more wild and crazy events at the Landmark Arena, and this year's certainly exceeded expectations.
Now, you make a reference to a gentleman that I know very well as the Extinction Level event, Logan Creed. This man is a hoss and then some, if I can use the old Western colloquialism. He stands head and shoulders above a number of competitors in pro wrestling, period. I'm not just going to quantify it by saying the Southeastern U.S. because this man has been up and down the coast easily. And you take what he has picked up. This man is a former tag team champion in some organizations, former heavyweight champion or current and or former heavyweight champion in other organizations. And I've watched Logan Creed. He goes against people his own size when you can find them, and those who may not be as tall, but probably, let's put it in the realm of AJ Steele or some of the others that really qualify in the super heavyweight category. And Creed just continues to become that much more of a monster. So I will say this, folks, if these two really do go at it, and I'm referring to the Extinction Level event, Logan Creed and the People's Captain Gunnar Miller, when these two go head to head, you better have a ticket and you better have a suit of armor.
And speaking of Gunnar Miller, and not taking anything away from Logan, because his time's coming, I do believe. The way the people reacted to him, he's going to be a big deal in Anarchy in the next coming months. But Gunnar Miller showing why he's the champion. He defended against Jacob. He went again. He defended the title in D.C., Virginia on Friday, Cornelia, Georgia on Saturday, and then got in a car and drove to Nashville on Sunday for a 2 p.m. show for Southern Underground Pro Wrestling,
right,
and defended the title against big up and comer Kevin Lee Davidson. And so 3 successful Anarchy title defenses all across the country. Doing wonders for the prestige of that title, and you might not like his attitude or the company he keeps, but just watching him is something to behold.
And you got to remember who he's got in his corner most of the time, and that's going to keep Gunnar Miller being pushed that much more forward and upward because JGB does not set well with somebody who slacks. Kind of like another manager I know, Reverend Dan Wilson.
Hey, well, former manager.
Yeah.
Former manager. I am officially retired from managing for the time being. That's not to say that that's a permanent retirement, but it is at least for the foreseeable future. Dragon Con once a year is about the only time I dust out the managerial thing anymore. But yeah, Friday night was great, and Cornelia keeps popping NCW every Friday, and then the next Anarchy event will be November 11th. Which will feature a headline steel cage women's match for the first time ever.
Really? As
Crystal Rose and Rock and Roll Roxy look to settle their rivalry once and for all. Logan Creed will be returning. He'll be in action. People's Captain Gunnar Miller will be there. the Anarchy champion, of course. The Heritage champion, Kyle Matthews, will be there. And a whole lot more, so you don't want to miss it on November 11th. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/Anarchy Wrestling, on Twitter @Anarchy Landmark, and on powerbomb.tv, of course.
Looking forward to it.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I just said I'm looking forward to it.
Hell yeah. Then one other quick wrestling thing, just to get out of the way before we move on. I will be the only other non-Anarchy booking I'm taking in 2017 is at the Scenic City Invitational Trios Tournament on November 18th, my birthday. So come buy me a beer and join us in Chattanooga, Tennessee for the Scenic City Invitational Trios Tournament on November the 18th, where I'll be doing commentary.
Would you like to pop the cork now real quick before we move on?
Sure.
In addition to the fact that we will be celebrating the good Rev's birthday that day, and I do mean we in a very capitalized sense, it has been confirmed that this is also going to become a live event for Beyond Ringside Sports Radio and the Beyond Ringside Wrestling Radio Network. Yours truly, Mark Mabo-Bowman from Beyond Ringside Live. The cast of Corner to Corner Wrestling Radio will be there, of course. The Good Reverend's cohorts here on the Midnight Black Mass are slated to be there, and we've got some more surprises. So definitely we will be set up there in the venue. We are going to be working on doing live broadcasting from the Trios event on the 18th at Hickson High School. But if not able to go live, we'll be definitely recording interviews. And if you come up and say hi, you might end up on the radio as well. Saturday, November the 18th for the Scenic City Trios Tournament.
Going to be a good time.
Come
celebrate with us. I'm looking forward to it. So just got back from vacation. It was nice. And, of course, where would the Reverend go on vacation but
Transylvania.
Universal. Close. Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando, Florida, celebrating my lovely wife and I's 7th wedding anniversary. We actually went there on our honeymoon and have gone back several times since. This is our 3rd year in a row that we've been able to go back down there for the Halloween Horror Nights, and it's pretty much become a must-do event. I have to say, a man of my experience level in life has done a lot of cool and crazy and wild and probably unspeakable on the radio in some cases things that have been wonderful. But I tell you, I don't know if I've ever had this much fun as I have at Halloween Horror Nights. Like, it's legitimately one of the greatest experiences I've ever done, and it keeps me going back down there year after year. So this year, the experience included 9 haunted houses, and we did the Fast Pass this year, which I highly recommend. They have 2 tiers of Fast Pass. You get your normal ticket for I think an additional $60 if you get the whole package. You can upgrade to the tier 1 of Fast Pass. That's really all you need. You go through, you get everything one time in the Fast Pass lines. Like the max, you're going to wait 5-10 minutes to get on anything. And we did. So all 9 houses we got to do. And then because we also do what they call the Stay and Scream every year just to get the most out of our money, we will go and they will quarantine you off when they close Universal at 5 o'clock before they reopen for Halloween Horror Nights. So they will quarantine you in an area of the park. And we always go to Springfield. It's a beautiful recreation of Springfield from The Simpsons. They have a Duff Brewery right there so you can sit and drink a few Dufftoberfests while waiting on them to reopen the park, and just get to kind of chill and have some downtime and meet some friends, and it's a really cool experience. But so they don't open the park until 6:30, but if you do the Stay and Scream, they open it at 5:30 to you, and they open 4 houses early, so you can go ahead and go through. And so we went immediately and hit Blumhouse, which was fucking amazing. It was and I'm not even the biggest fan of those movies, but I gotta say they had their shit together. The actors were just on point. The presentation, it was great. It was the scariest of all of the houses, and we went through that one in broad daylight. It was Sinister, which I did like. I like those movies. Insidious, which I didn't really care for, and The Purge, which I liked a couple of them and didn't like one of them. So I didn't really know what to expect going into that one, but it was one of those where there was a scare around every fucking turn. So every time you turned a corner, there was somebody there to jump out at you, and no sooner than you had recovered from that, you turned around the next corner, there was somebody there. It's the timing was just so good, and it was just relentless. So that house got high marks, and then we went over and did second. What the fuck did we do second? Maybe Ash versus Evil Dead, and that was tremendous. It's my favorite show on television right now, especially with Game of Thrones going away. Give it the highest recommendation possible. If you haven't watched that show, go watch it. Get a Star subscription. They've got a little app. You can probably do a free trial. Go binge it. It's the greatest thing on television. It's in many ways, I feel like Ash is an analogy to my life. He just wants to go to Jacksonville and get drunk on the beach, but instead he has to fight the Evil Dead. So the house was so great. Lots of homages to the movies and the series, and had to do that one twice. And they also had a great American Horror Story house this year. We had to do that one twice as well. They did Asylum, Roanoke, and what the fuck was the other? Coven, the season with the witches. And that was awesome. It was, like I said, it was so good. We had to do that one twice. And they did The Shining, which is a classic.
Yes.
Can't beat The Shining. It's Stanley Kubrick masterpiece of a Stephen King story with an Oscar-winning performance by Jack Nicholson.
Yes.
And, it basically took you all the way through the movie. It was one of the least scary houses, in my opinion, because I know the movie, so I knew what to expect. But it was fucking amazing. They even had the elevator with the blood running down. They somehow managed to recreate that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's Universal, man. $1 million special effects.
You're giving me concept ideas for next year's vacation and getting it instead of going to the Redneck Riviera.
Yeah, no, you need to go to Universal. Everybody's got to do Halloween Horror Nights at least once. That's a bucket list item. You have to. So The Shining was great. I even saw this thing where at the Hollywood version, James Franco went and played Jack Nicholson's character, Jack Torrance, in the haunted house and was fucking with people, which I thought was hilarious.
See, I've been trying to, unfortunately, we've got some great haunted houses here in my home area, Birmingham, but I've seen all of them. And even though they all expand year after year, I always want to try to make it a point. See, I was finally going to get a chance to go to Fright Fest Six Flags this year. Nope. Mother Nature said, sit your ass in Birmingham. And then from there, I've heard so many different things about Universal. I've wanted to go for the last couple and just have not made it down. So this coming year, 2018, if I'm still around this planet, Starship Earth hadn't pulled out of orbit, I'm definitely going to check it out.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I want to hear what you have to think about it, because as a lifelong horror fan, for me, it's just a dream come true. And so some of the other houses they had real quick. So I covered The Shining, I covered Blumhouse, I covered Ash vs. Evil Dead, and American Horror Story. They also had a Saw house.
Really?
It was awesome. It was just a combination of various movies. It wasn't one movie. It was just some of the best kills from all of them. It was just called Jigsaw's Game.
Oh. That'd be fun to go through.
Oh, it was awesome. It was really good. And then they had 4 original houses, I always enjoy those because, it's kind of a unique thing. You don't know what to expect. Part of I think they strike a good balance of okay, I know what to expect with these and I want to see it. Like last year we had Freddy versus Jason and a Halloween 2 house, those are all great. This year they had some of the better original houses in a while. They had one called Scarecrow the Reaping, which was the most popular of all of the original houses, and it was pretty terrifying. The timing on it for us got a little screwed up because there's this woman in front of me, in front of her boyfriend, who got so terrified she would just stop dead in her tracks and freeze. and like bundle up on the ground in the fetal position, and like it kept throwing off the scare actor's timing. So I feel like that house would have been better. I lost a fucking $25 pair of sunglasses in that fucking house too because of that, but that's a whole other story. But it was awesome. Like the scarecrows were all like demonic as hell looking, and like it was this old like haunted farmhouse basically that you went through, and they had like a big cornfield on the outside and shit. It was badass. And they had another one called the Hive that was like these Nosferatu vampires set in like an 80s environment, so it's kind of like Lost Boys meets Stranger Things, with a little more vicious edge. And it was cool. And then they had this one called The Fallen, which was actually my personal favorite of the original houses, just by a hair. But it was like the concept of it was angels versus demons. So you had like all these fucking giant demons like murdering angels in the fucking house, and it was something they'd never done before. They actually had stunt actors in there, and so they had some awesome shit that I'd never seen in a haunted house before, like demons like flying over your fucking head and shit.
Really?
Like it was really awesome. Yeah, it was like one of the demons was like just going nuts over there, and he saw how pumped we were at seeing him and the reaction that I was giving, so he was just like feeding into it. And I look over at one of the fucking attendants, and I was like, "Oh my god, this house is so fucking metal." And he was like, "It is so fucking metal." He had like a hordes moment. It was very cool.
Let me ask you a question if I could. Now, I'm going to cut in for a hot second on this one because I have to ask. I like haunted houses where they can retaliate, so to speak, or, there's somewhere it's like those who are in it won't touch you. But they will get right up in your face or right up in your ear and right up behind you. Do you have a preference as to how far the people, okay, I'll just say it, the actors are willing to go?
Yeah, I don't really care to be all touched. Like I would never go do that one that McCamey Manor or whatever where they're like, "Oh, we can torture you" and all this other shit. Like, no thanks. Like I like to be scared because it's hard to scare me, for one, because of my just desensitization from all of the horror that I've watched over the years. But I also like to marvel at the scenes and the costumes and the fucking, like all that shit is just so super cool to me. So like the shit where they're like trying to touch you is like, I don't know. Like I feel like that's a recipe for disaster. I don't mind them getting as close to me as possible, or even like where they can like tap you on the shoulder and shit, but not anything like aggressive.
Now, McCamey Manor, that's the one in Southern California, isn't it?
Yeah. Just look it up. You go look it up if you're curious. But
I've read about it.
It's pretty ridiculous. Like I would whip a motherfucker's ass. That thing.
No, I've read about this one. I mean, I haven't seen pics or video of it, but I've heard about McCamey and read a story about it to where this is one where if you consent and you in advance acknowledge the fact that this can happen, not only can they touch you, but you can also be bathed in blood. It's like, hell's bells.
Yeah, no fucking thanks. Like, I like horror. I don't necessarily just want to be grossed out or fucking tortured or, abused. You can go fucking take that shit somewhere else.
Well,
let me see some genius craft work.
Well, see, there was another one that I read about because it's like I wanted to do a road trip this year, but my schedule wouldn't let me. And one that I'd read about, I think it was through BuzzFeed, Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the review that one person had about this place, it's, quote, "This haunted house will make you nope the fuck out." It's like, I'm going, you have my attention.
That's awesome. I mean, I love haunts that, can get people. Like, I am fascinated by that. Like, in another life, I could have probably got into, like, horror effects designing and shit.
Yeah.
Like, and at some level, I still would like to kind of cross the Reverend character over into the horror genre at some level if that opportunity ever arises. But, it means a lot to me. It's just one other house before we get out of here that the last one that we did wasn't the last one that we did. The last one I would talk about, just because I wanted to mention something that was really cool in it. It was called Dead Waters is what it was called. and it was like this New Orleans voodoo zombies was the gimmick. And they had this fucking like full recreation of this like plantation house that had like sunk down into the swamp, and like nature had like taken it back over. It was so magnificent.
That's the mortuary, isn't it?
Say what?
Is it the mortuary?
No. It's an old plantation house. Like then they did. This is at Universal. They built this.
Oh,
like,
okay. Because I'd read about the mortuary in New Orleans.
No. This is part of Universal. Like I said, they just built this fucking plantation house from scratch. And
okay.
They built it to look like nature had like reclaimed it. It was like sinking down into the swamp.
Yeah.
And like so when you walk in the first room, like the floor is tilted and shit. And like the fucking zombies were so gnarly awesome in that too, because they were like like mossy and shit.
Okay.
And like voodoo zombies aren't undead zombies, so they just kind of combine those mythologies. But I was okay with it.
There are so many that I have not seen. I'd heard a story about one in, I believe it was Las Vegas, that it's an anything goes facility where you allegedly are, you pay to walk through nude. Oh, hell with that.
Yeah. No thanks. If I paid somewhere to walk around naked, it's not going to be a haunted house.
There you go. If I'm paying to walk around naked somewhere in Las Vegas, it ain't gonna be a haunted house, but it's gonna be a fun house for a couple of hours.
Exactly.
You know what I always thought, and this is something I want to bounce off you. I know that it's been done. I know it's been done to death, but probably one of the better places to do like a haunted cemetery or something like that, or a tour, has got to be New Orleans, Louisiana, and all of the old mausoleums and stuff that they've got around there. You could probably just freak the living frag out of somebody there.
I've always wanted to do Halloween in New Orleans. Like Phil Anselmo from Pantera used to do that House of Shock down there, which is just fucking amazing, like an R-rated haunted house. The dude that directed Hatchet, Adam Green, actually is hosting a Victor Crowley Swamp Tour tomorrow night down there after a screening of the new Hatchet movie. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, I definitely always wanted to do New Orleans at Halloween. My wife's boss is actually down there now, so I'm jealous of them.
Bastards.
So yeah, man, like Halloween, obviously, as you can tell from my from the Reverend portion of me, that it's a big deal to me, and it means a lot. Yeah, I've got a list. I'm not going to go through it. I was going to if we had time, but I need to really bail out of here and help with the final preparations.
Okay.
But I had a list of probably 60 to 75 horror movies I've watched since we started celebrating Halloween on September 1st. And it's the most I've done in the last several years. I was very proud of that. And, maybe we'll talk more about that next week when we have the full crew on here to compare and contrast. But let's just say I've watched every fucking version of The Mummy.
I believe it. I've missed a couple, but I've seen a lot of them.
Well, I'm convinced the only good ones were the original Karloff Mummy and the Hammer Mummy movie. The rest of them were pretty shitty, but I watched them all anyway. But and a whole lot more. So, but yeah, that's gonna do it for us this week. I hope you have a safe and happy Halloween. Instill the magic of Halloween in your children and get your ass out there and trick or treat. Can't stand living down here in the Bible Belt at times because, like, I look now up and down my street, and I've got all of my decorations going crazy, but it looks like a fucking cemetery down here down the road. Nobody else is feeling festive, so fuck them.
I hate it when that happens.
But, so safe and happy Halloween to you and yours. You can follow me on Twitter at Dragons Rejects. Eddie, give them the plugs, and I'll wrap her up.
At Beyond Ringside on Twitter, Facebook.com/Beyond Ringside Live, BeyondRingside.com, ProWrestlingRadio.net, the Beyond Ringside Radio app for Amazon, Android, and BlackBerry, as well as TuneIn Radio for all formats.
And that's going to do it for the Halloween edition of the Midnight Black Mass. Keep one foot in the gutter and one fist in the gold. and have a safe and happy Halloween. Good night.